John Legend, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you again. This is our first time during the social distancing era.
This is our first time. Hopefully it'll be our last time. I don't like this. I like hearing your silky voice in person. I feel like there are a few parts of the frequencies that are lost over the camera. I don't like it.
And I'm sure you miss your audience too. I think all of us as performers miss our audiences. And there's something about, particularly with comedy, it's nice to hear the laughs in person as you deliver the jokes. And I think for artists, it's the same. We want to hear the crowd. We want to feel the response that they give us right away. So I think we all miss that and look forward to the day when that's safe again.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it goes both ways because I've talked to some of my fans where they go, I miss the feeling of other human beings experiencing something around me. Like a collective joy, like I've been to concerts where half of the concert is just enjoying other human beings having a great time around me.
Exactly. And as much as we were doing these, Instagram live concerts from home and, Alicia and I did the Versus thing, it's very different to feel the crowd. And there's no experience that will duplicate that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that place in the world, being not just an artist, but being a black artist who is also conscious. Before these protests began, John Legend had been on the ground. You've been fighting for changes in mass incarceration. You've been fighting to change how America treats black people. You've been fighting for equality and justice for a long time. Is this part of the movement you've been hoping to see for so long?
Well, seeing the folks in the streets, seeing this multiracial, multi-generational, huge movement of people in the streets has been very inspiring for me. It does make me hopeful about the future, but I also know that there's a lot of work that goes into actually making the change that we're speaking out for. And so all of the times in between these big protests are when a lot of that work has to get done.
Right.
And so activists, organizers, they're seizing this momentum and saying, let's get in these city council meetings. Let's talk to our Congress people. Let's organize, let's mobilize people to get out to vote for particular district attorney candidates or particular county sheriff candidates. And so that is kind of the everyday grinding work of a democracy that need to be done for us to see the kinds of changes we want to see. It happens when you're dealing with school boards and zoning, so many of the things that affect the daily lives of so many people and that have affected Black and brown lives so negatively over the years have been these local decisions like housing segregation and zoning and school segregation and who gets chosen to be the police chief and how much budget goes to policing, how much budget goes to the county jail or to the state prisons. So all of these decisions, they don't get a lot of headlines a lot of times, and we don't think about them when we think about our elections most of the time. But this is where the decisions are being made, and if we're not engaged in democracy in that way, then sometimes we miss out on being in the room to make those decisions and having our voices heard when those decisions are made.
What I found particularly interesting, especially in your case, is that I've seen a lot of the work that you've been doing, in the space of social justice. What I was surprised by is you announcing a new album. I was like, wait, when was John Legend recording an album? When was he making music? How was he making music? One thing that I'm always intrigued by is the ability of an artist to exist in multiple spaces at the same time, because I thought this album was just going to be about what's happening. I thought it was going to be like a coronavirus album. But it seems like you've chosen to go back to classic John Legend and almost give us an escape from everything that's going wrong in the world.
Well, the timing has been so interesting because I was writing this album in 2019, all through the year. I was writing it early this year, 2020, and I was done writing the album by the time we all went to lockdown. And so this album is a reflection of where I was when I was writing it in all of 2019 and early 2020. It's an expression of joy, of love, of human connection, of nostalgia, of my love for Black music and all the music that's really made me the artist that I am. That's really what this album is inspired by. And of course, it's coming at an odd time. It's coming at a time when everyone's been on lockdown for several months. When for the last few weeks, we've seen people protesting in the streets about the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others. And so it does feel a little odd putting music out in this moment that isn't directly responding to what was happening in this moment. But that's kind of the nature of making an album. It's a long process. And I will be writing more music, and some of that will be responsive to what's happening right this moment. But it'll take a while for even that to be done and ready to be put out again. And what I do think is music has the power to lift people up, to give them hope, to make them feel that connection, feel that love. And I feel like people could use some more of that right now. And I think this album has that kind of feeling to it.
Yeah, it really is. It's a smooth album, like it's smooth. It's really, I'm serious. It's like, it's comforting. It's beautiful. It's like, it's classic John Legend in the way that we know and love you. And you've got some wonderful cameos that come on and join. You've got some artists who feature on the album, everybody from Gary Clark Jr. to Gene Aiko. And it's beautiful to hear these different sounds and melodies coming together. Why the title Bigger Love? It feels like that's been a theme I've heard from you recently. I heard it in the verses with you and Alicia. It felt like it was like a battle of love, which I've never encountered, I've never experienced in life. But it feels like that's something that you've really been pushing.
When I was writing these songs, that was what was in my head. I wrote the title track, Bigger Love, back in the fall of last year with Ryan Tedder and Cautious Clay. And we were in the studio just, trying to write a beautiful song that felt like it connected. It felt honest and it felt powerful and necessary in that moment. We didn't know how necessary it would be, a few months later, and how much connection people would be craving at this moment. But it felt right at the time, and it feels even more relevant now. And I think the idea behind the title is that this album is colorful, it's full of love, full of hope and optimism. And that title felt like it captured that sentiment for me.
All right, well, John Legend, thank you so much for the music. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It is truly such a great honor to have you here. Not just because I'm a fan of your music, because I'm a fan of how much people are a fan of your music, which sounds like a weird thing. But I always love artists that just get people excited wherever they go. Like, have you ever wondered why people love everything you do just beyond the music?
Well, I like to think I'm just who I am. I'm not putting on any false fronts, and I'm coming up here and just trying to make people feel more comfortable about being who they are and to embrace that. And I feel like that's kind of the best thing I can do right now at this moment in time.
It's just be yourself.
Just be myself.
I feel it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna lie, I feel it. And being yourself has been really good, you have a bunch of Grammys with Alabama Shakes, and now with your debut solo album, 2 Grammy nominations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been wild. It's been a wild ride. I used to work for the post office. I used to work for Cracker Barrel. I used to work for Shoney's. I don't know if y'all know what that is. I've had so many jobs, and in the back of my mind, I was like, but I'll always do music, and I'll always love music, but this might be the best I get for now, but I still got that dream. And then being here on a show, this is the first time I've ever spoken on the show. That's wild. That's wild. Having Grammys, that's wild.
It is wild.
It's crazy.
You've been on a wild journey, and it is a scary step to take because, Alabama Shakes is really successful. You guys are headlining festivals, and you're selling out smash concerts, and then you go out and you create a solo album, which is a terrifying stage for any musician to take in their career, to move to that next stage. Why would you do that?
I think I'm crazy. I think I just wanted to truly be myself. And I'm really influenced by people who are just so totally wanting to share their vision, and they start from the ground up. And that's what I wanted to do when I made this record. I wanted to start with the rhythm section. I wanted to make my own bass lines, drum parts, keyboard parts, and then put my own voice to it. Because to me, music and what I'm trying to say is very connected to one another. It's not two separate things. And I wanted to create something like that, even if it's once in my life. I wanted to. You've
definitely done it, and I don't think it'll be only once in your life, because you produced this album, and obviously you worked with amazing musicians, but to produce your own work is powerful. the stories that you write, in the music and the songs and what you're talking about is truly one of the most personal experiences I've heard in songs that you've been on. For instance, the song Goat Head is a story of your mom and dad and how, as an interracial couple, people did not want them to exist. Could you tell the audience what Goat Head is inspired by?
Yeah, Goat Head is a story. This song started as a story that my mother told me when I was around 14 years old. I grew up and I was very lucky to have the ignorance that my mother's white, my father's black, and we all get along for the most part and we love each other. And I thought that was gonna be my experience in the world. When I got a little bit older, my mom was like, no, it was not easy. My mom told me the story about sleeping in her apartment and my father coming to visit. And when he woke up the next morning to go to work, his car, the windshield was bashed in and the tires were slashed and slurs written on the car, and in the back seat was a goat's head. And they basically were saying, stop this now.
Right.
Stop this love that you guys share. And that was hard to hear. And it's always been in the back of my mind. And it's always been there. And once I wrote this song, I had a chance to release it, And I think telling my parents' story, even if it's not my story, I think it's doing them some good too. Just to say, this happened, this was wrong, and this is what happened, and I think other people need to hear about this.
It's powerful because every song takes you on a different journey. There's joy, there's pain, there's reminiscing, and then there's the present. Georgia is a story that shares, in many ways, that theme of a truth that is painful in its beginning, but then has come to a beautiful conclusion. And Georgia is a love song to another woman. And I love how you talk about how it was different for you to sing so explicitly about loving another woman because of where you grew up and the place you grew up in.
Yeah, it was hard being the odd man out in a small town, and I always felt that way, and all the friends that I kept also felt that way. And when I wrote this song, I just thought how great it would be to write a song for myself when I was that age. And I was so confused about who I was and didn't understand that love could be anything, look any kind of way. And I wanted to write a song that I could jive to at the same time. And I had not heard a song like that. And so when it was time for me to write this record, I said, how cool would it be to write it from that perspective when I was just a child and I was just needing some support, a little encouragement. I need to see something that resembles me and how I feel. And I loved writing that song, and it's actually one of my favorite songs on the record.
It's a beautiful record. I can genuinely see why it has been nominated. Everyone who listens to it loves it, including myself. One last part of it that touched me in a way that I wasn't expecting, because it's not one of the songs, but rather the title of the album is Jamie.
Yes.
Why did you call the album Jamie?
Yeah, I had a sister, older sister. She passed away when I was 9. She was 13 years old. She had a really rare type of cancer. It's called retinoblastoma. And I lost her at a young age, and she taught me everything about being creative and using my imagination, because when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have all the video games and all this stuff, It was just us outside, and my sister would say, well, you can write a song, you can have a good time, or we can go play in this creek, or we can go find snakes. I grew up in Alabama, so we was out there in the creek looking for snapping turtles. But she taught me how to use my mind to create the world that I wanted. And so when it came time for me to make a record like this record is so much of my world and so much of how I feel, that it was only appropriate to say, like, thank you, and put her name on it. Yeah.
Congratulations. Again and again and again and again. Her, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure having you on, because you have become just the soundtrack. Not the soundtrack of life, not the soundtrack of the pandemic, just the soundtrack. That is what I feel like when I think of Her. Before we get into the music itself, though, I would love to know the story behind Her, because it is one of the most unique artist names I've ever come across.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've just always loved music since I was a little girl. It's always kind of been a given to me, just doing music. And I got signed very young, but I was making this very honest music in high school that kind of just represented what I like to call the evolution of woman and me becoming a young woman and going through different things and changing and vulnerability. And I guess even if it wasn't that deep, it was always that deep for me. So I was writing this music that was kind of heavy, and created this EP, Volume One. And I really wanted the project to just be the cover of the project to just be a silhouette. Where nobody knew what I looked like or anything about me, and I wanted to have everything revealed in the music and not what we sometimes focus on with social media, because I'm really about the music, and that's where it came from.
Yeah, I feel like more than most artists, you really, really, really focused on not just the music, but on keeping the music separate from your life. And it feels like it's really intentional where you've gone, I don't want you to know the person behind this. I want you to know what the person is giving you. Why was that such a big deal for you? And is that a correct assertion?
Absolutely. It's a big deal for me because I think music is the foundation, and music is the main part of it. We get so caught up in what everybody else is doing. And then sometimes we get disappointed because at the end of the day, we're all human. We are all flawed. We all go through things and we all have stuff we deal with outside of our art. And I really just wanted to focus on the art and, have a kind of a sense of privacy, I guess. But, the music is the message. It makes you want to fall in love. It makes you, sad. It tells you what's going on. And there's just a lot of things that music does. And I think we forgot about that. We forgot about the substance that is the art of music. And that's what I'm about.
You remind me of some of the greatest artists of like my parents' generation, where you can make beautiful music about anything, but there are moments where you take your time to make a song about the pain that people are experiencing in life. And one of the most famous songs in that regard is I Can't Breathe. A song that came out during the heights of protests in America, during the heights of many people's pain in America. You wrote another song recently about Fred Hampton, for Judas and the Black Messiah, another song nominated. And all of these songs are really painful, but at the same time, it feels like you're trying to inspire us to something. It doesn't feel like it's a hopeless song. It feels like it's hopeful despite the stories ending the way that they did. When you're making that music, do you think about the thing first, or does the event inspire you? I'd love to know what that process is or how it comes about for you, because it really connects with people.
Oh, thank you. It really depends. When it came to like a song like I Can't Breathe, it was the heat of the moment. It was like, okay, I'm literally looking outside my window in New York City and seeing a huge crowd of people protesting, and I'm seeing all these things on the news, on social media. It's everywhere we look, and it's great that it's everywhere we look now, because now there's kind of this awakening, I think, going on. And a lot is being exposed, and we've had time to be still. And so, I've had time to be still and look at the world around me and really sit with this pain and this kind of anxiety. Like, okay, some of the lyrics are like, how do we cope when we don't love each other? What is a gun to a man that surrenders? How do we judge off the color? And, all of these things that I said, it really was just like, why? And why do we have to live in fear? Why does this keep happening? There's songs like, from a whole other time, back in the day, there's songs that Sly and the Family Stone were writing, Marvin Gaye and people like that were writing that are still relevant to today. And it's kind of like continuing that thought of like, why is this still happening, in that pain? And I think the goal is always to make people hopeful and to also educate through music and let people know what's going on, and that we have a responsibility to try to make a change. And I'll never forget a call that I received from somebody, and they said that their 70-year-old Jewish father listened to my song and told the person that called me, and they were like, yo, have you heard this song by this girl? It really made me think differently. And at that moment, I knew, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than me expressing my feelings on a page. Now it's changing the way that people think, and the way that people see things. And that's what music is supposed to do. So the fact that I can do that, it just off of what I feel and the responsibility that I now feel to express what's going on today.
As much as you maintain your anonymity and your privacy, you also share yourself in one of the most vulnerable ways I've ever come across. You know, we're used to seeing artists on stage. We're used to seeing these big, lavish performances. But once the pandemic struck, we saw her in a completely different way. You started hosting really intimate performances, you know, from a room in your house, whether it was on Instagram Live or whether it was like a Zoom performance. And it felt like you were sharing a different side of yourself. It felt like you were sharing the pandemic with us, and then your thoughts about what we were experiencing in real time. What inspired that? And were you ever worried about like almost being too vulnerable and not being like prepared? You know, a lot of people have the veneer, but you were just like, no, this is me, let's do this.
You know, in the beginning, I was like, oh, because one of my first times going on Instagram Live was in the pandemic, and I'm in the house with, you know, my hair in a messy bun and just my plain old hoodie, and I had just moved, so the room was completely empty, and you know, there was all this great reverb. So I was like, let's just get into it. Let me just sing. Let me just sing for the people. But it was honestly a way for me to stay connected and keep people updated on what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, and
right.
in my artistry and my creativity, but also boredom. You know, I really love music genuinely and wanted an opportunity to be able to still do my thing. And I think Instagram Live was a good place to do it. And I started a series called Girls with Guitars, and it was like, now I can jam with other people on live, which is even better. And it turned into something great. So, you know, it was just something I wanted to do.
Good luck for the Grammys. Good luck for the rest of the journey, because it's gonna be a crazy, exciting one, and I'm excited to see where it takes you.
Thank you so much. It was so great speaking with you.
Take care. Buju Banton, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
Haha, respect. Thanks for having me on your program.
It truly is an honor to have you on, because I mean, you are a legend, and I mean, this is not a term that people use lightly, especially in the same genre as people like Bob Marley or Peter Tosh. You know, they say Buju Banton is a legend of reggae, and you're back with a new album. You're back with an album that has been so highly anticipated that, you know, when you performed in Jamaica at the National Stadium, not only were you the first artist to sell it out since Bob Marley, but people flew from all over the world to see you. People want to hear your music. People want to feel, you know, what you create. What does it feel like for you to be in that position again, to be making music again, to be back?
It's a lovely feeling. But I do not see myself as a legend of reggae. I see myself as a servant of reggae. Reggae music is a music that comes from the people of Jamaica. Now, upon being able to create music and make music once more, it's a tremendous feeling, because when you're separated from those that you love and the things that you love, and you know you did it from your heart, you did it from a sacred place inside of you, and it's ripped apart from you, and you're separated from it, and a narrative is purported that you cannot really identify with. It brings a great joy to be able to reconnect with what you truly love. So coming home and see my people in the National Stadium to celebrate that moment with me, and people from all over the world, it was like Noah, not Trevor, building an ark.
Right. What's powerful as well is the journey that so many of your fans were on with you. You know, and you sing about this. You know, you sing about it and you talked about it. You know, your tour is called the Long Walk to Freedom Tour. You know, you sing about being freed from the chains, and you talk about what it was like being incarcerated and how that you know constricted you as a human being. When you use your music to communicate, what do you hope people understand about what it's like to not have your freedom as a human being?
First and foremost, music is more than just something to have you gyrating and dancing. It possesses those qualities, but there's also the ability for you to think, the ability to learn something from the great music. I always want to make music to uplift, educate, stimulate the minds of the people. Yes? And we will not cease from doing that, because that gives us a tremendous joy. Yes? When we can communicate with the people and bring that music to the people. So we always try to make sure that whenever the people hear Buju Banton or see Buju Banton, positivity is a necessary ingredient that you're gonna get. You're gonna get music to gyrate, but you're gonna get something positive.
You know, what's interesting about, you say that music informs, but I would push back on you and I would say, not all music informs. Reggae has a rich history of being conscious, you know? Like reggae has always been like a music form where it seems laid back and relaxed, it seems airy, it seems like, you know, that's the vibe that people get. But when you listen to what's happening in reggae, It's talking about the world. It's talking about society. It's talking about the problems that we're dealing with. And it
speaks about the people who are trying to rise up and take the man's boot off their neck. It speaks about the people who, after they rise up, they're still being hampered by the measures that are already in place to keep them in place. So this music, a lot of people relate to it right across Europe, right across Africa, right across the Americas, but it emanates here in Jamaica, and it must never ever cease from being a conversation starter.
The album is called Upside Down 2020. And what I found most fascinating is you named it before 2020, and now we are truly living in an upside down 2020. Did you have a feeling that 2020 would be upside down? Or should we blame you for basically putting us in this situation with your prediction?
Man is always looking for someone to blame. And maybe that's what when we start looking with him, we can find profound changes, that needs to be made, and we can rectify them, Upside down, our music, especially my music, has always been something that I see it as a gift from the great I Am, from a higher source, the great God Almighty himself. So whenever I get the inspiration, I cannot hide the inspiration from the people who the message were meant for. As a servant, I must serve the people. So when we say God free the people over hills and over valleys, don't look for someone walk with a cane in his hand like the days of 2,000 years ago. It's the consciousness and the awakening and the realization of mankind that we are all brothers and sisters and live in harmony. So when you come to 2020, it's nothing less. It's the same inspirational spirit that flows through man, inspires man to make the music. Our music has been relegated to a third world music, but nevertheless, like you so honestly stated, the impact is far reaching. So I cannot take credit and say, well, then it was a prophetic move on my part. I would say it was a great inspiration from the great inspirator.
Oh man, I will say one thing I appreciated. One of the many things I think I appreciated about hearing this music is how vulnerable it felt. You have 10 tracks on the album dedicated to the 10 years of your life that you lost. You have 10 tracks on the album that are dedicated to the future. We know what we're living through. We know what we're going to be talking about. But what do you hope the future will bring, not just to yourself, but to humanity?
Peace. Yes, peace and love. Yes. No one is calling for peace and love. Everyone is calling for all kind of things. Peace and love is what Rastafari. That's what the music is about. Well, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I don't really love them kind of song then. Neither. You know what I mean? Because I not dream. I want to see peace and love for my people and all people.
Well, you know what, sir? I hope that you're right. I hope that the same way your album title was prophetic, maybe those words will also come to be a prophecy that becomes fulfilled.
Because we have the power of the spoken word, know how to use it. Let us speak things into existence, sir.
I appreciate that. Buju Banton, thank you so much for joining us on The Daily Show. Michael Kiwanuka, welcome to The Daily Social Distancing Show.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here.
Oh man, I'm a little sad to be talking to you right now because your concert was the last live event that I attended before all of the lockdowns happened. It was at the theater in LA. Forgive me, I forget the name. Yes, and it was a beautiful, intimate show, and I just remember it being like this transcendent experience, and everyone was just like feeling the love, and I was like, oh man, we got to do this more often, and then the lockdown hit.
Man, that's lame. I had no idea that you were there. That's amazing, and that was one of my favorite shows ever. Definitely favorite shows in Los Angeles, but yeah, man, I mean, I can't wait to get back and playing music again, and when we get through this.
What made that show really special for me as well was you having your family there. You know, it was really cool when you were introducing your family and like they became part of the show. And what has that journey been like for them? You know, because your family came from Uganda, then moved to the UK. You know, your dad was out there hustling for your family. And I mean, to see the journey and to see the rise to the place you are now, I mean, it must really be insane for them and for yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Mom still texted me. I mean, she texted me today because she heard a song on the radio here in the UK, and she was like, "It's on the radio." It's still like they just love it, you know, and feel so excited because obviously growing up playing music, they were always super supportive, but it was like yeah, coming from Uganda, it was sort of like a risk to support their son playing the guitar all day and
Right, right.
really doing any schoolwork. And mum had to really take a leap of faith, and dad, to be like, okay, we'll support you, but make sure you practice and work hard. And for them, it paid off. So I owe so much to them for just being supportive, and it was difficult for them, but they're enjoying it now.
I remember being at your show, and genuinely, I don't say this to gas you up. It was like it's like you were telling us a story, but a story that was happening inside you as a human being. You know, it was very personal. It was very vulnerable at the same time. And then I was shocked to find out that you at a point were really struggling with self-doubt. Like you had imposter syndrome. You were like, I can't do this, to the point where it cost you an opportunity to collaborate with Kanye West. Tell me a little bit about that and how you've managed to work through that.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was just basically, maybe it was to do a bit with growing up, but I just sort of was always trying to fit in. I thought in order to, be accepted or sort of succeed in whatever you're doing, whether it's music, getting a job in the bank, you sort of had to fit a bill. And then I thought it was the same with music. So every time I tried to do music that was like what was on the radio, or just I thought people would like it, just sounded awful. And then when I was doing my own thing, it was like, I love this, but it's like, are people going to understand 10-minute songs? Are people going to be offended by lyrics? Or like if I do a song like Black Man in the White World, what's going to happen? No one's going to play it. All these things.
Right,
so
right.
I thought, I'm never going to make it. And I just had all these doubts. So when I went to the studio you go to the studio with someone who's amazing, as Kanye West, I just kept thinking, what does he want me to sound like instead of me?
Oh, yeah, right.
So it was just kind of like learning and growing up and learning how that to be an artist is about being yourself, and the unique thing that makes you unique, the thing that makes you different is your strength.
Your third album is entitled Kiwanuka. Most artists will call their debut album by their name. It was interesting to me that you went with your third album as Kiwanuka. What was the reason for that?
Yeah. Normally your first album is self-titled, and it was two reasons. It was like, I definitely knew it would be a statement artistically, because it would be like, oh, interesting that the third album is self-titled. What's he trying to say? Maybe it might draw opinion. And at the same time, it reflected kind of what I was saying before about the self-imposter, imposter syndrome. It was sort of like a declaration to be
right.
Yeah, this is who I am, and I finally come to terms with that, and I'm enjoying that. And it's threefold, because then my name was always something that I loved, but it carries a lot. So it talks about my heritage, but it also describes that I'm, a first generation Briton. It says so much about me without you even meeting me. So
Right.
music, the same thing, even just the pronunciation of the name, everything, it says so much. So I thought, and I used to sort of hide behind that name too when I was growing up. It's the same way I wanted to fit in with music. I'd be like, I don't want to say my name. I wish it was simple. And then I got older, I sort of like felt so sad that I thought that. So now I'm so proud of it. I just let's call the album, have it big and at the front. So that's why I went for it.
It feels like your entire journey has been one of, I think, working through the past as you build your future. You're now on a journey where you have been nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Rock Album. What's amazing to me is that while this is happening, you are in the UK performing at your old high school where you performed your first concert. In fact, we're going to be playing one of those performances at the end of the show. I would love to know what that journey is like, because I don't know about you, but when I think about high school and I think about going back, I still think the bullies are going to be waiting there for me, and they're going to be like ready to like find me around the corner, and I'll be like, but I'm the host of the Daily Show, and they'll be like, give us your Daily Show money. What was that like for you going? Did you come in with like, I'm Grammy nominated swag, or did you go like, oh boy, it's Michael with the funny last name swag?
A bit of both. I mean, it was, school for me was interesting because I think I got saved by music. So I definitely was like the kid that had like no change to it now really, but I had like the picky afro hair that was sort of funny shaped, like flat at the back, and it was like, this guy's weird with guitar, but it should be. And it was, I definitely had that for a bit, but then, and it was weird and that. But then when I sort of started a band and did my music, people liked it, so it was all right. I could kind of avoid the bullies and the. So going back to school for me, and the reason why I went back to school did that performance, it was like I felt really lucky because music sort of saved me, and that was the place I found it. Remember, my first concert ever I did was in that hall.
Right.
And in that moment, I was like, oh, I found what I need to do. I didn't need to go to any house parties. I need to fit in. I didn't need to even really, much to my mom's sort of dismay, I didn't even need to like study. I just thought if I focus on the music, I'll be fine. And it worked out. So I thought going back would be a nice full circle.
Well, my friend, it was the best kind of triumphant return anybody could hope for. I hope the Grammys is as triumphant for you. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I can't wait for you to get back out there playing music and doing what you're doing in all the venues that you had to cancel for coronavirus.
Thank you again so much.
I appreciate you, my dude. Have a good one.